Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Real Tales podcast. And this is an episode that I am super, super excited for. I have Nick Kamrada from Tampa, Florida with me here today. And Nick is a guy that I synonymously associate with team building and community building and doing it all at such a really young age, which I really, really respect. And I can't wait to just dive into your origin story, Nick, and seeing how you're able to do all the things that you've done in real estate. So before all that, how are you doing, my brother?
I'm great, man. Thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, likewise, likewise. So I want to take it back. So before real estate, before building your real estate business, what were you doing before, and how did you find your way into real estate?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually was in college. I was finishing up college as COVID started, which was how I got started into real estate. So finishing up college as COVID starts, everything gets shut down. I was planning on going into the medical field and going into graduate school. So that was my plan at the time. But then, when everything shut down and we're all in quarantine, I started, just kind of doing a little bit, I guess you could call it soul searching and kind of just to decide what I wanted to do because I wasn't sold on the medical field. That was just, I played college baseball, so I knew that was a really good backup plan in case baseball didn't work out. So that was kind of always my plan. But then once the world got shut down during COVID, I started looking into some other avenues. I had always been interested in real estate, but didn't really know, the different ways that you could succeed in real estate. So I went to start getting my real estate license because I thought that's how you get started in real estate. So I'm in school to get my real estate license, and I actually came across Brent Daniels on YouTube from TTP. So long story short, just kind of fell in love with wholesaling, was introduced to it through him, watched every YouTube video he's ever put out. Really just fell in love with the concept and said, this is something that I could go after. And I think that I could be, pretty effective at this. So I dove in, I joined Brent's mentorship program. I was going to college in Ohio and decided to move down to Tampa just because, better weather than Ohio, first of all. And I saw what was going on in the Tampa market and figured, hey, that's probably as good a place as any to get started. So long story short, I just kind of burned the bridges, burned the boats, and
Awesome.
and oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry.
Oh.
So you were in school in Ohio. Where in school in Ohio did you go to?
Ohio University. I was a Bobcat in Athens.
Okay. In Athens. Yep.
Sure.
Awesome. And you were playing college baseball and you wanted to get into the medical field. Was there a reason why you chose the medical field?
Like I said, so my primary focus throughout high school and college, it was baseball. And so the medical field was kind of a backup plan in case baseball didn't work out because I knew that, it was a stable career, a way to make a good income. But it wasn't really something I was passionate about. So yeah, that was my plan, but I'm very glad I found wholesaling, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So you find Brent Daniels on YouTube and then you just get started, you just absorb all of his content, get started in real estate. And so how did you actually get your first, your start? How did you start taking action to find your very first deal?
Yeah. So like in Brent's program, it teaches how to prospect for sellers through cold calling. So that's what I did. I moved down to Tampa, pulled a list of tired landlords, and just went to work, man. Just started pounding the phones, and it took me about
And
3.5 months
were
to get
you
my
hand
first
dialing
deal.
these
But then,
leads, or were
yeah,
you
after that, it
you
kind of started snowballing from there. But cold calling.
nice? And were you hand dialing these leads? Were you using a dialer?
Yeah, I went and got a dialer immediately. I cold called or I hand dialed for like the first day or two, and then I was like, yeah, this isn't gonna work. So I
Yeah.
subscribed to Mojo and had a dialer from basically day two.
Yeah, I've been I made myself hand dial for like the first year before I even knew what a dialer was.
Oh man,
So yeah,
that's
it was yeah, it was brutal. So so I so at right after you graduated college, you went to Tampa. What was going through your head moving from all the way from Ohio to Tampa? Were you originally from Ohio, or were you from Tampa originally? I mean, because when you move all the way to a whole different place at
Mhm.
such a young age, that's it's so new to you. I'm sure there's a lot of emotions going through your head, a lot of things going through your head. I just wanted us to talk about like what that moment in time was like for you.
Yeah, for sure. So, a little bit of background. I actually grew up in Michigan. So, I grew up in
Okay.
Michigan, graduated from high school in Michigan, and was recruited to play baseball at Ohio University. So, that's how I ended up there. Tampa, I mean, I liked the weather. I knew that I always wanted to live in Florida. I never wanted to live in the Midwest. But I really just kind of chose it because I knew that there was, a lot of stuff going on here. And as far as moving down there and not knowing anybody, um, I had already done that a couple times in my life. So in high school, I actually transferred high schools 7 hours down to a completely different high school, moved 7 hours away, went to a school that I didn't know a single person. And then obviously when I went to college, I didn't know a single person there. So scary, yes, but I had been through it a couple of times. So I was just kind of like, hey, let's make it happen, right?
Right. It's just, I guess from a young age, you were already comfortable being uncomfortable. So I'm sure that translated a lot into business.
Definitely. Definitely.
Awesome. And so you got your very first deal from cold calling. How did your first deal go? Like did things go bad? Like what happened in that specific deal? I want the details.
Yeah. So the first deal, so I guess I should backtrack. The first deal I actually ever got, I had to drop it because I only got one seller's name on the like when I tell you I didn't know anything, I went and got my first contract, but I only got one
Yeah.
of the signatures of the husband and not the wife. And then the wife didn't want to sell, so that deal kind of fell apart. So my first deal that actually went to closing, it was a hoarder situation. I was actually so my process, what I would do is I would cold call for probably, I mean, shoot, at the beginning, I was probably cold calling 60, 65 hours a week. But what I would do is I would cold call, and then on the weekends I would drive for dollars. Saturday and Sunday I'd drive for dollars, and I'd pick up new lists to call that following week. So I would be pulling tired landlord lists and then driving for dollars. And this first lead or this first deal that I actually closed came from that driving for dollars list. It was in a really good area, actually very close. It's in the same neighborhood that I live in now, right down the road from me. I saw it, classic driving for dollars lead, beat up, trash all in the front yard, all that sort of stuff. So called up the owner. It was a couple of older ladies that they'd inherited the property from their mom, and one of them was living in it and was a little bit of a hoarder. And their problem was that the house needed a lot of work, needed a lot of trash out, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, after a little bit of follow up with them, I was able to come to an agreement with them and then got that deal sold, helped them with some trash out, helped them with the moving and all that sort of stuff. But that first deal allowed me to then, start building momentum and start building onto that. And then, now fast forward, we got a full team doing a whole lot of stuff here.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. And then how much did you make on that very first deal?
32,000.
That's incredible. That's incredible for your very first deal. So you just moved to Tampa, you just discovered wholesaling, and then how long did it take for you to do that first deal from when you started to actual close?
So my first day cold calling was November 9th of 2020. That
Okay.
was the first day that I started cold calling. And my first closing was February 19th of 2021.
You remember
So
the dates just like me. I like that. That's awesome. So
same.
that's about 4 months.
Yeah, yeah, somewhere around there.
That's
Mhm.
incredible. And so, okay, so you got your very first deal. You just made 32 grand, which led you to where you are today. But obviously that doesn't happen overnight, right? I mean, there's a lot that builds up to you actually scaling out and building a team. What were some of those struggles that you had early on after you got your very first deal, and how were you able to overcome them?
Okay. Yeah, man, good question. So after the first deal, obviously, before the first deal, it's always the hardest. Getting that first one is always the hardest because you're having to cross that bridge from faith to fact, right? You're trying to convince yourself, tell yourself that this is possible and I can do this. And then after you get the first one, it's like, oh shoot, I did it. Now I just got to keep repeating it, right? So I would say the biggest challenge with cashing a $32,000 check after not making any money for 4 months. The biggest challenge is it's continuing to do the same thing, right? Because a lot of people, what they do is they cold call for 3-4 months straight, then they finally get a deal, and now they want to dump it into PPC because now they don't want to cold call anymore because they're like, man, that was a lot of work. But it's like, hey, that's what allowed you to get your first deal. So the way that I looked at it was instead of instead of, hey, I got 32 grand now, let me go work on some inbound marketing, I said, hey, let me put this away and keep doing exactly what I did, because that allowed me to make this money. And why try to find another avenue when I just proved that this one worked? So I really just doubled down. But that was probably the biggest challenge, was remembering and telling myself, hey, don't start getting shiny object syndrome. Do what you did to get the first deal and continue doing it. And that's what we did.
Awesome. So you stuck with cold calling for are you guys still cold calling to this day as well?
Yeah, cold calling it's still every single quarter, every single year, it's our best producing marketing channel by far.
Interesting. Awesome. Awesome. So now today, like, what does your business look like today, like, as far as people that are on your team and what the roles are and people that are in the operation?
Yeah, for sure. So seven. I have seven full-time employees now. Five of them are virtual assistants, and then two of them are here in the States. The virtual assistants, three of them, we did have four of them full-time cold calling. Now three of them are cold calling, and one of them I actually just recently promoted to a lead manager. So I have three full-time cold callers. I have a lead manager who's a virtual assistant as well. I have an acquisition manager who's local here. I have a dispositions manager who's local here. And then I have a virtual assistant that does, she helps with our dispositions, and she does like some admin work. So yeah, five virtual assistants, two local based here in the United States, then obviously me overseeing.
Awesome. And then with your team, how many deals are you guys doing per month?
On a bad month, we're around three. On a good month, 6, 7.
Awesome. That's
I would
solid.
say we're averaging between 4 and 5.
That's some solid deal flow. And so over this period of time, I'm sure you've learned a lot in regards to, like, being a business owner, specifically regarding hiring and leadership. In terms of leadership, because I know, like, when you're hiring and when you're building a business and scaling, there's two things you got to learn. Number one is how to bring on the right people, and then it's two, how can you be the best person for them. So it's these two things that you have to consistently train yourself on and remember as you're building this business that you have. What has been the greatest lesson you've learned regarding leadership over these last 4 years?
Oh man, that's a good question. And you're right, dude. It's completely different, and that's one of the things that I learned was, it's one thing to be good at finding deals, and it's one thing to be good at wholesaling or being a good investor. It's another thing to build a company that's good at doing that, right? Because then the focus, I'm not so much talking about houses and talking to sellers. I'm building a company. I'm trying to create culture. I'm trying to keep people motivated, right? So the biggest thing that I've found and I've learned is that when you're a business owner and you have people on your team, it's not about you, right? They don't work for me. I mean, technically they work for me, but I work for them, right? My
Yeah.
job is to make things as easy as possible for them, and to set them up for success. So I went through some situations where, I have five virtual assistants now and they're crushing it, but I went through a long time where I'd, go through either a less than ideal virtual assistant. Maybe I made some bad hires, or I didn't have the systems and processes in place to set them up for success. So the biggest thing that I learned was, like, I had to take my focus away from like finding the deals to building a culture and building a team of people that have, one aligned vision and one goal that they can stay motivated on every day. Because it's easy to stay motivated when you're the one cashing those checks, right? And you're the one that,
Right.
you make a $30,000 assignment fee, you're keeping that $30,000. It's different when you're running a company and you have people that are, they may or may not see the vision, and you have to continually remind them and continually put the vision out for them to see.
And so how does that translate to on a daily basis or on a weekly basis? Is there, like, what are the actions that you're doing consistently to help build that culture?
For sure. So we have daily sales calls with our sales team. Our cold call, or I'm sorry, not daily. We have meetings. We have a team meeting on Monday with my management team, my virtual or my acquisition and disposition managers. Then on Tuesdays, we meet as a acquisitions team. Full acquisitions team meets on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then on Fridays, I meet with the disposition team. So it's like constant, FaceTime, giving them feedback. A lot of it, it's always positive. One of the biggest things that I learned is that when giving feedback, you give one piece of critique at a time, one thing for them to focus on or to improve, but you focus the majority of the conversation on positive reinforcement and encouragement, right? Because that's how you build that kind of culture, is by allowing them to feel that you care about, their successes, and you're not just there to tell them what they did wrong, but you're shouting out their successes and hyping them up. And I feel like that's one of the biggest things that we've been able to do to, build culture. And another thing, a challenge I actually gave, I was reading a book. A couple of months ago called The High Impact Life. And I got an idea from it that I actually implemented into my business, and it completely changed our culture. And basically what it was I gave all of our virtual assistants a challenge, a giving challenge, where I increased I gave them all $50 each extra on top of their weekly pay. And I told them that they had to find somebody that needed it and give it to them, and explain, and then come back to the team and report like who you helped, how you helped them, why you chose them, and how it made you feel. And what happened is, man, the response from that was unbelievable. I got some videos, and these are from the Philippines, right? The Philippines, Dominican Republic, $50 American goes a long way over there. So like they really had the opportunity to really help some people out. And so I think showing them that I care about them as people and not just as employees. I don't want them to just sit there and make calls for me, right? I care about them. I care about their personal development. And it shows through giving them a challenge, right? Like that, right? And that builds a ton of team culture. That allows people to feel like they're part of a team rather than, they're across some ocean just making calls for some unknown boss. They feel important. And stuff like that is how we've been able to build a really, really cool culture.
I I absolutely love that, and it's funny you say that because I'm going through something like this myself. So I've talked about this, I think, on 2 podcasts straight, but I'll keep talking about it because I just absolutely am obsessed with this at this point. I've been religiously listening to The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale recently, and if you guys haven't listened to it, I've probably said like a million times now online. Go listen to it. But I set a 30-day goal, as it says in the audio recording, and it was last month, and I hit it. Right, I listened to that audio consistently every single day, and I ended up hitting the goal. And it was a big audacious goal, right? It wasn't just something, it was a big goal in revenue. It was to hit over 50K in assignments for that month, which we actually ended up going over. We actually did 54. And that was a big goal for me. So I was stoked, and I thought, you know what, this would be incredible if I took what I just experienced and I brought that to my team. So I have 2 people that are here in the States as well. I have my TC and I have my acquisitions person, and I handle Dispo in my business. And I gave it to them just yesterday. Literally, I told them, hey guys, listen, this thing worked wonders for me. I want you guys to do this in your life too. And we recently started a 30-day challenge together, right, where it's me and the 2 of them to go in and have a 30-day goal to try and accomplish it together. And I'll see what happens in 30 days, but I 100% agree with the premise of what you just talked about, which was how that builds culture, right? How having that one thing to where you can give to somebody else can really just build a lot of camaraderie in between team members, which I think is super, super important, right? Because that's what culture is all about, right? It's that glue that builds, that contains everybody together in the company and just helps you go through to that one goal, which we all want, right? That's why we're all working together. So
Absolutely.
I absolutely love that. And so what have you learned regarding hiring? How have you found, or what have you found to be the most helpful tips you've learned regarding how to hire and who to hire?
For sure. So, as far as who to hire, I probably don't have the most standardized hiring procedure or anything like that. Like, I know that there's a lot of companies that they'll run people through like personality tests, index tests, all that sort of stuff. I don't necessarily do that too much. What I do is I've learned that, people will lie their butts off in interviews, right? So I feel that you learn way more about that person from working with them for a little while, 2, 3 weeks, than you will ever learn from talking to them in an interview. So, and this may not be the perfect process, but what we've found that works is that when I hire a new virtual assistant, We'll do a short interview just so I can, talk to them like you and I are talking here and make sure they're not a crazy person, make sure they can hold a conversation and they're, I think they might be a good culture fit. And then I just throw them into our system, right? What I do is I bring them onto our team, kind of like on a probationary period where it's like, hey, we're going to give this a test run for the next, 2-3 weeks. You're going to have paid training. Paid training will get you started, introduce you to all of our systems. And then we'll kind of reconvene in, 2-3 weeks down the road and see, is this a good fit for both of us? And what that allows them to do is get into our team, meet the other people on our team, start learning our systems and processes. And honestly, a lot of the time what happens is if somebody's not a fit for us, they know themselves. They'll almost escort themselves out of the business because they get into our system and they see what we're about and they see our culture and stuff. And if they can't hang with it, if they can't hang with us for 2-3 weeks straight, there's your answer kind of thing. So that's kind of the system that we've found that's worked the best, because the people that that deserve to stay around, they prove that. And you can tell after maybe a week or two if somebody's going to be able to stick around and if they're going to be able to catch on to the things that you need and be a good culture fit. So that's how we've kind of established that. And then I look for people that are friendly, right? Especially because our biggest thing is cold calling. You don't have to have a real estate experience. You don't have to be a real estate expert. You don't really have to know anything about real estate to be a cold caller, to be an effective opener. What we call them, our openers, because they open the door to our new leads. They're the first point of contact. The most important thing for me, especially for a lead generator, a cold caller, is just somebody that can hold a conversation, somebody that's friendly, somebody that actively listens, somebody that, if I listen to their calls and they're, just interviewing the seller, just ask them a question, completely dead silent, and then ask them a question as soon as they answer. That's not going to be effective. So what I look for is just people that they know how to communicate, right? They have a little bit of social IQ to where they can actively listen and kind of read the room, read the conversations. And we hire for that, and culture fits. And the people that stick around, they make it through that 2-3 week probationary period and they're fired up and ready to go. And usually if they're not going to stick around, they're gone before that 2-3 weeks is up.
Absolutely. And then is that the same thing that you look for also in people that you're bringing on that are in state?
Yes. So for the most part, here's the thing. My acquisition manager he's my best friend from 6th grade. We grew up together. And so after I started doing a handful of deals, I brought him down to work with me and kind of taught him everything I knew. He started off cold calling and then kind of moved up, and now he oversees the entire acquisitions department. So yes, same stuff, but it's really, man, it's just people that I can, people that I can trust, people that I can tell that they have empathy for people, right? Like my acquisition manager, his name's Gabe. Every time I'll talk to a seller, I can't even tell you how many times somebody's just said something about how Gabe just listens. Gabe is so much better at connecting. He actually cares about what's going on with us. He doesn't care about just, getting the property under contract for as low as he possibly can. He's actually wanting to solve problems for people and provide value. So I look for ethics. I look for honesty. I look for integrity, because the rest can be taught, right? The rest can be taught. All of this wholesaling, real estate, this can all be taught. But what's most important is how you communicate with people and how you treat other people.
I love that. And that's a testament, because I want to ask you about systems and processes. But before that, it's the culture fit is the number one thing. Now, do you have a collection of core values that are within your company?
Yes, we do. And it basically it's that exactly. It's we do what we say we're going to do. When we tell somebody that we're going to do something, we do it. We're honest. It's really just honesty, integrity, and transparency. And if you go to our website, our wholesaling company's website, that's what it says right there. And it will literally tell a seller, if you go to our website, it will say somewhere, we may not always be your highest bid, but we are your best offer because of these things, right? We're providing a seller focused or a seller solution driven business. We're not just trying to get the best deal. Right. Obviously, we're investors. We got to make money, right? That's why we're doing it. But what makes us different is that we uphold these standards to ourselves, where we will not treat a seller we won't do anything to a seller that we wouldn't do to our own grandmother. That's what I tell our team. That's what I tell our acquisitions team all the time is like, we treat our sellers the way we would treat our grandmother if we were buying their house, right? Like, yes, we do have to make money, but our goal here
Right.
is to make you feel so valued and so important that like, you don't care if we're making money off the deal or off the property because you were provided an amazing service. So yes, those would be our core values.
I love that. And this is something that I've recently experienced myself, and you kind of hinted at it, is that those core values that you put in your company aren't just alive within the company. They bleed into those conversations you have with your sellers and with the people that you're doing business with.
Mhm.
So if you're, if you're confused on core values, or you're just letting anybody work in your company, that's going to show in the way that people are communicating, the feedback you get from your sellers. Whereas if you have those core values that you're clear on, and the people that you work with are clear on those too and embody that, that's the message that you send off to your sellers as well. And it does create, I've noticed, a much better, and a much more clear and not stress free, but just question free conversation as far as if this person's really going to be a good fit for us to do business with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so as far as in the community building, because I know you are big in online communities like TTP. I see you doing calls there all the time, and I also know that you do meetups in person, right, in Tampa, right?
Yeah. We host a local meetup on. It's once a quarter. We're actually having one this week. But yeah, we do that.
How did you get started on that, and what made you decide to do that?
Yeah. So actually, so I was having an end of the year. This would have been going into 2023. I was meeting with my team at the end of the year and trying to figure out like, how do we get into the community? How do we get our names out there as like your go-to ethical wholesalers, right? Because obviously wholesaling has such a bad stigma, and especially in a
Yeah.
market like Tampa, that's, it's very competitive. So there's a lot of knuckleheads out here that are doing whatever they can do to get a deal, right? So it started as a meeting with my team, how to get ourselves, how to get 27 properties out into the community, so where we can get more JV opportunities, referrals from agents, referrals from lenders, stuff like that. And so that's how it started. And it kind of transformed into, I wanted to create a community in which, because I moved down to Tampa and I didn't know anybody, right? I kind of had to piece everything together little by little, found a deal here, found somebody to help me sell it. Now I found a contractor, now I found a title company, all that sort of stuff. My goal with that community, while it initially may have been to increase JV opportunities and increase kind of brand awareness in the community, I also wanted to create a ecosystem or a scenario or a community in which somebody like me could move to Tampa and not know anything, not have any of the pieces put together, and come to our meetup and be able to piece together everything they need for a deal, right? We got title companies there, we got lenders, we got buyers, we got wholesalers, we got contractors, we have appraisers, we have attorneys, we have everybody that you could need to create a real estate or complete a real estate transaction in that community. So that's kind of the purpose behind that.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And you also are me and you are both in TTP. That's how we met.
Mhm.
And I see that you are also doing weekly Zooms in there as well.
Mhm.
Uh, can you touch base on that? Like what you specialize in talking on there about, and like what the value you give on there is?
Yeah, for sure. So it started off as a creative finance call. And we do still talk about a lot of creative finance on there, but it's kind of morphed into like, there's a group of, there's some new faces that come in every week, but for the majority, there'll be, 20 to 30 of kind of the same faces that show up, and they'll ask me questions about stuff that's going on in their business. I'll give them case studies about, maybe creative finance deals or different um, outside of the box deals in which we solved a problem for a seller. My purpose with that is that obviously TTP, that's where I got my start, right? I will always be so thankful for Brent Daniels, because he created that situation. Like, if I didn't see Brent Daniels on YouTube that day, in quarantine, I don't know if I would be here, right? So my goal with that was to kind of provide something in that community that I would have loved to have had when I joined, right? Because they didn't have all the support calls and stuff when I joined, whatever it was, 3-4 years ago. It was more just the modules and some support calls with Brent. But now there's almost every day there's different support calls with different, people that have different specialties. To where I thought, how can I provide value to this community and do something that I wish was there when I was in the community? And that was somebody that, I'm not, obviously, Brent's way up here. So there's some people might not even, want to talk to Brent because of fear of him being so much higher than them. Whereas if somebody that's maybe just a couple steps ahead of them can give them maybe a little bit more relatable advice, or like, hey, I just went through this. I just built my business in the last couple of years. So I might be able to, provide some value to you, that, or a unique perspective that you might not get somewhere else. So it's really just trying to help out and provide something for the students that I know that I would have benefited from when I was a student.
I love that. I love that. And that's why I open up the podcast with you being a team and community builder, because I see you doing that all the time. And it's something that I really, really respect, and especially as somebody that, like you said, right after graduating college, you moved to Tampa 4 years ago. So, you're a guy in your 20s that's doing something like this. And as somebody that's a fellow, some guy in the young 20s that's doing this business, something that I really, really respect. So just seeing you do that all the time and seeing what you post about and just the value you give online is, I can just only speak for myself, a huge inspiration. So I really appreciate what you do, truly.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And so back to kind of more of the mundane business talk, right? Because we were talking about mindset and leadership, which is great. I want to talk more about the nitty gritty business stuff.
Sure.
So you said that through your meetup, you've found like contractors and pretty much everything in regards to real estate, any sort of trade within real estate. Are
Mhm.
you guys at this point strictly wholesaling, or do you guys do fix and flips as well, buy and holds? What's the mix as far as exit strategies in your
Yeah.
company currently?
Yeah, we do it all. So, 27 Properties is primarily a wholesaling company, but we'll fix and flip. We don't usually do big projects. Like if we get a deal that's too good to pass up, like for example, the last house that I flipped was a deal in Clearwater that I bought for 260. I put a new roof on and sold for 380. That sort of stuff. Like we'll do fix and flips like that, where it's very, in and out in just a month or so. We'll wholesale the larger projects. We do novations as well. And then we'll assign seller finance and sub two deals. But then I have a portfolio of deals that I've bought from Creative Finance that I'll keep personally in a rental portfolio.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, like I said, just a mixed bag. And then you mentioned that cold calling has been the marketing channel that you've been the most consistent with over the last 4 years. Have you since added any other marketing channels, or is it just cold calling currently?
Yeah. So we've done cold calling consistently ever since I started this business, and like I said, it's always been our best dollar for dollar return, our most consistent marketing channel. But we do have other marketing channels. We'll send out text. We have text blasting campaigns. I have radio ads. So if you're here in Tampa Bay, if you're on 105.5, you'll hear my voice on there 5 times every day from Monday to Friday. So I run radio ads. We have a couple of different PPL providers where we bid on leads, like internet leads coming in. And then we get a lot of like referrals, pocket listings, JV opportunities, stuff like that. So it's a mixed bag of outbound and inbound marketing.
Awesome. Awesome. And as far as I know, you're doing 3 to 6 deals a month, or 4 to 5 usually. What does that translate to in revenue?
So we're as of this year, we're averaging about 85,000, 90,000 a month in assignment fees.
That's incredible. That's
So
absolutely
that
incredible.
puts us at, I think our average deal is a little bit less than 25,000.
Okay, so that's essentially it's a 7 figure business if consistent over a year. That's incredible.
We're on pace to do over $1 million this year.
Awesome. And was that a goal for you to hit this year?
Yes. Yep. It was a goal last year. It was a goal last year as well because we got very close the year before. But we had obviously the market shifted and there was some challenges there. So yeah, I reset our focus.
Yeah.
We had a couple of different goals and we didn't hit them last year. So I made it very, very clear to my team this year we have one goal, and it's to do 7 figures this year. And yeah, By God's grace, we'll get it done.
And you said shifting priorities. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, trying different marketing channels, and kind of getting away from. Here's the biggest thing that I found was that in that when we started doing more deals and we started trying to shift and say, how do we get into the seven figure range? What we started doing was we started looking at other marketing channels, but our biggest problem was that we lost our consistency with cold calling. So what happened was we'd start, running PPC ads, or we'd start doing all this other stuff to where we wouldn't have the consistent daily output every single day on the phones, right? And like I said, that's always been our most consistent. So if we're not doing the cold calling every day and we're not hitting the KPIs that we need to hit with cold calling, and then, these inbound marketing channels, radio goes in and out, PPC goes in and out. So they might do really, really well one month and really, really bad the next month. It's really hard to create consistency with that. And that's the biggest focus, or that's the biggest shift that we made this year that has allowed us to be on pace to reach and surpass our goals, is that we put so much more emphasis now on our daily and weekly output of cold calling, right? Like before it would be, we might contact 1,000 sellers this week, and then the next week we might only contact 600 or 700, right? Now this year we've focused and we've made sure that consistency is always there, and we've placed such an emphasis on it that every single week we're contacting 900 to 1,000 sellers every single week. And that is what's really allowed us to have that consistency and not have the up months and the down months that we had in 2023. Because we would do that. I mean, we do $200,000 in one month, and then the next month do 20 or 30. So it's like, there's obviously an inconsistency in the output that is going to cause an inconsistency in the input, or I'm sorry, the input, which causes an inconsistency in the output of our revenue. So we focused on that, and that's allowed us to be much more predictable and scalable.
I love that. And so let me ask you, you're on track this year to do seven figures. And I know you're, how old are you?
28.
28. How does it feel to be making almost $1 million, or making $1 million this year at 28 years old?
It feels great, man. It's a blessing. I am thankful every day for the position that I'm in, and I'm just trying to lead my team and get us to where we need to be. But I'd be lying to say that I'm not super, super blessed.
And is this something that you knew? Is this a position in life that you thought that you would be in, say 10 years ago?
So I always knew that I was going to be successful. I didn't know how. I think that that's what pushed me into doing as much soul searching as I did before finding wholesaling, is because I had always thought I was going to be with baseball, right? I went to college on a baseball scholarship, and I had some opportunities for that. It obviously didn't pan out, but I always just had this feeling that I was meant for something more. And it was kind of like when I saw wholesaling, or when I was introduced to wholesaling and I saw what Brent was talking about on YouTube, it was like the light bulb turned on. I'm like, this is the venue, or this is the vehicle that I can use. So did it 10 years ago, would I think that I was here already? No. I knew that I would get here. I didn't know I'd get here this fast.
And what do you think is attributed to the speed of your growth the most?
Tunnel vision. That's the biggest thing, man. Like I can honestly say, like, the whole shiny object syndrome that inflicts so many entrepreneurs. Luckily, I was really able to kind of get around that. That hasn't really been too much of a focus. Obviously, like I said, in 2023, we may have gotten into a little bit of it with, the PPC and the other marketing channels. But at that point, I'm already, 60, 70, 80 deals into my career. So I can bounce back from some bad months, right? If I did that off the bat and I make 32,000 and then go blow 25 of it on a PPC campaign, that might put me in a much worse position. So I think the biggest thing that's allowed me to get to the point where I am in the speed that I've gotten is just tunnel vision. I see what works and I pour gasoline onto that fire, right? And I think that's how we've gotten where we've gotten.
Awesome. And what would you say to somebody that's just getting started in wholesale that sees your growth, that wants to have that same kind of growth? What would you tell them are as action steps to get started?
I would say that, I mean, first of all, you got to get around people that are doing it, right? Because if you're out there on an island and you're working by yourself, especially if, if you're in another job and you're doing this as, a side gig to try to get started and try to get out of your job, it's going to be really, really hard for you to maintain that, that vision and that long-term tenacity if you're doing it by yourself. If you don't have a community around you, if you don't have people around you that are supporting you and encouraging you, because there's a lot of ups and downs in this, right? I mean, there was so many times before I cashed my first check where I thought I might be cashing my first check, but then it fell out, right? Or it didn't fall out. The seller changes their mind. They decide they're going to take some other offer, whatever it may be. So there's a lot of emotion management that comes with especially getting started, because there's so many highs and there's so many lows. So if you're just getting started, you need people around you that can keep you grounded, right? That can help you piece together the puzzle pieces that you don't quite have until you can start building some momentum by yourself and keep you just focused on the goal.
And where do you think somebody can, or where's the best place, I should say, that somebody can find that type of environment or that type of person?
Dude, I mean, honestly, I'm not here to sell the TTP course, but dude, TTP, Brent Daniels' program is so foundationally important for me that whenever I meet somebody new that's trying to get into real estate, I always direct them to Brent, because there's the way that he communicates, the way that he is able to explain things to somebody like me who had no idea what I was talking about at first. Like,
Mhm.
that's just a great starting place, and he's improved that program so much to where there's so many other resources and options for people that I think that honestly is the best starting place for a lot of people.
Yeah, well, the answer that I was really looking for was coaching. I mean, your answer was great. I mean, I think that's where I give people advice to go to as well, was Brent's mentorship, because I think that's the best place for somebody to get started too. I agree. But just the power of coaching when you're just getting started is literally gasoline for someone's growth. And that was something that I was super late to discover. I joined TTP, or I used to start joining mentorships, I'd say like a year into my journey. And that first year was rough, right? Like I said, I was hand dialing like for a year straight and is doing all these things the wrong way because I didn't know any better. Whereas if I had, and this goes to somebody that's just getting started, if you have that knowledge, that people say like to pay off your ignorance tax up
Mhm.
front, that's just going to just put so much speed and just so much knowledge in your back pocket that you can just take and use to when you have a decision you're about to make, which a newbie would usually recognize as a uh, usually ends up being a bad decision. You know that it's going to be, you know how to navigate that and to make it a good decision, right? Whether it be how to get started with cold calling, or if you're not going to cold call, how to set up direct mail correctly, whatever the case may be, however it is you decide to do it, right? How to talk to sellers, right?
Mhm.
Instead of learning these on your own, you now have somebody that's done it before, done it thousands of times to do it. So I always tell people, like, dude, if you're getting started, get a mentor, get a coach, I should say,
Yeah.
because that's going to really speed up your growth
It just
1000%. And
it shortens the learning curve so much, because like you said, I mean, you might run into a situation where somebody else has been there, done that, and instead of you making that mistake and learning the hard way, you can learn from their past mistakes and you can
right.
prevent that mistake. So there's been so many mistakes that I could have made that I didn't, because I was around people that were like, I've been there, I've done that, do this.
Hmm.
And
I
that's
100% agree.
that's the whole point of mentorship. That's the entire, there's so many gurus out there that are selling, nothing. They're just selling a dream. And that's why it's important to make sure that if you're going to pay for a mentorship, make sure that the person that's teaching you how to do deals is currently doing deals. They're not doing deals 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Because
Right.
I know a lot of people that are making more money off teaching people how to do real estate than they're actually doing real estate. So
Yeah.
coaching is incredibly important, and it can absolutely shorten the learning curve for you. But yeah, you got to make sure that you're learning from the right person.
I love it. I love it. And kind of talking about about that, what you just said, I want to move on to this next question, which is present day today. You mentioned that you've delegated a lot of your day to day in the business. So what does your day look like typically currently?
Most of my day is talking to other investors, helping people with JV deals. I have people every day that reach out to me, want to talk to sellers, want me to help them comp their deals. They might be talking to sellers and they need help with a buy price. So my biggest thing right now, I mean, I'm very much for the most part removed from the day-to-day activities of the lead generation and the selling process. The only thing that I typically have to do now is if a seller needs an in-person appointment, because actually I should have mentioned this, but my acquisition manager, he recently moved to Green Bay because we're originally from the Midwest together, and he wasn't really a Florida guy, so he moved back up to Green Bay. So he does all of his work virtually, and he locks up the majority of our sellers over the phone based off what they say about the condition of the property, and then we go out and do our due diligence and all that stuff. But there's some sellers that they have to meet somebody in person before they sign a contract. So that's really on a day-to-day basis. In-person appointments are the only thing that I have on my schedule, and the rest is just, I mean, like I said, it's either talking to other investors or supporting my team, right? Because my team doesn't work for me, I work for my team. So I'm always trying to support them. I'm listening to their calls, giving them feedback, sending them inspirational messages, or talking about deals that we've done, showing them the value. One of the biggest things that I found that really help our virtual assistants in particular is showing them, I'll send them the listing photos after we've flipped, or after we've wholesaled the house and that buyer has flipped it and they got it on the market. I'll send them that and give them a story of hey, this was the seller. I don't know if you guys remember, but we called this person. This was their problem. This is the value that we provided. Now look at this beautiful house that's now ready for a family to move into. And showing them stuff like that, it just, again, it creates team culture. It creates, a higher satisfaction rate out of, my employees, what they're doing every day. So that includes to improve, or that leads to improved production and improved work. So I'm trying to help other investors, and I'm trying to support my team. And that's what my day-to-day looks like.
I love it. Where do you see yourself in 3 years?
3 years, I would like to be doing, in 3 years, I'd like to be doing $2 million a year in Tampa Bay in assignment fees. And I'd like to be in Orlando. I'd like to start expanding into more of Florida, because right now we're really only focused in the Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco County, and Sarasota, the areas around Tampa Bay. But I know there's so much more opportunity out in, Orlando, down in Miami, and some of the smaller submarkets. So I'd like to expand into those markets. And really, I mean, shoot, I'd like 27 properties in the next 3 years to be a $3+ million a year assignment company, or a wholesaling company. That's where I'd like to be.
Awesome. And then follow-up question to that, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
10 years, man, buying apartments. What I want to do is my number one goal right now is to have 27 properties doing $100K a month, every single month, no matter what. Every single month, we're doing 100,000 in the door every single month, because that will then free me up both financially and, I can expand the company. I can start doing other things. I can start focusing even more on helping other people. I want to continue building the community that I have to where, to date, I've gotten 9 investors their first deal through JVing a deal with me. I'd like to 10x that. I'd like to get 100 people their first deal in the next 5-10 years. You know what I mean? I want to be able to be buying apartments for my own personal wealth, and I want to just be helping people on a larger scale. I'm not necessarily interested in mentorship and having a course or anything like that, but I want to help people through actively doing deals. So increasing our JV opportunities, increasing our outreach to be able to help new investors that either, maybe they don't have the buyer's list, or they're just getting started, or whatever it may be, being an asset to them.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And so this is going to be my last question. And I appreciate the all the knowledge you've given so far throughout this podcast. If you can go back in time and talk with Nick when he was first getting started in wholesaling, what would you tell him?
You cut out for like a good. All I heard was if you could go back in time.
Oh, okay. If you can go back in time and talk with Nick when he was first getting started in wholesale, what would you tell him?
Do exactly what you're doing. Do exactly what you're doing, because what I did when, and I think that this has really helped a lot of the people that I've talked to as well, is I woke up every day and it wasn't, I'm going to get a deal today. I'm going to get a lead today. I'm going to get, I'm going to get paid today. What I did every day was focus on the inputs. What I did. So my goal every single day was to get 50 sellers to tell me no. I didn't get off the phone until 50 people told me no. I wasn't necessarily like counting leads or counting appointments or whatever it was. I said, if I can get 50 people every single day to tell me no over the course of weeks, over the course of months, it's absolutely inevitable. Either A, I'm going to prove that wholesaling doesn't work, or I'm going to be successful. That was
Yeah.
almost like my mindset going into it, because again, I didn't know anybody that was wholesaling, and I'm just following Brent Daniels on YouTube. I was almost like, I'm going to work so hard that I'm either going to prove that this works or I'm going to prove that it's impossible. And so again, I focused on what I can control, because you can't control if a seller's going to, sell to you, or somebody that comes in and offers 50K over asking or 50K over what you offered, right? You can't control that necessarily, but you can
Right.
control how many people did I talk to today? And every person that I do talk to, am I genuinely trying to solve a problem for them? And if they don't have a problem for me to solve, I'm not trying to convince them to sell their house, right? Like, I have no value to provide to you. So I'm looking for the people that have issues and that need help. And then my goal was just to make them think of me when the time came that they needed to sell their house, right? So I wouldn't change a thing. I would go take consistent action every single day. And I would genuinely, just like I did, try to provide value to every single person I came across. And that's exactly how I was able to build what I built. And I'd do it over again if I had to.
I love that answer. I love that answer. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, so I'm trying to get a little bit bigger of a social media presence. I'm not a very big social media guy, but you can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is Nick_underscore Kamrada. I'm on Facebook. I'm trying to get a YouTube channel started before too long here. I've got mentors and people telling me I need to get that going, but I'm just not a social media guy. So hopefully I can get that going for in the near future. But for now, Instagram or Facebook's the best place.
Awesome. And I'll put all those links down in the bio. That way people can easily find you. Well, Nick, again, I really do appreciate it. This was an amazing conversation. I had a lot of fun doing this. And guys, this was the Real Tales podcast. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.